All right. Next caller, we have Shabazz from Kentucky. No pronouns given. The question here is, what is it about your ideology that leads you to atheism? What is it about a creator that you find unbelievable? So before I put you on the air, Shabazz, I'm going to ask Godless two questions. Is atheism, in your mind, an ideology?
No, it's an answer to a question of whether or not you believe in God.
Okay. And I'm not saying that that's what Shahzad said. He said, what is it about your ideology that leads you to atheism? But I just wanted to clarify that point. And two, what is it about a creator that you find unbelievable? I'll take that one first by saying the creator's characters I've been presented with so far have either defied the laws of physics, there's no evidence for them, etc. So when you say unbelievable, I would ask you your definition of that, but I'm going to assume it's something like mine, which is I have not been presented with sufficient evidence to convince me that they're real. So given those two premises, Shabazz, I'm going to put you online. Given those, I would like to ask you to go ahead and give us your questions and tell us your thoughts.
You all laid the questions out pretty clearly, and it's not necessarily ideology that needed to be the term that I used. Just what is it in general that leads somebody towards atheism? And if you say it's that you just haven't seen sufficient proof, that's that question answered. And but my rebuttal to that, or my question to that answer, would be, what is it that would be sufficient proof to someone like you? I guess I couldn't say an atheist in general, but when an atheist such as yourself, what would be sufficient proof to you?
Right. Well, I don't have to know that. I don't have to know what would be sufficient proof or what would convince me. But if you're proposing a God definition where your God is all powerful and all knowledgeable, then he should definitely know what would convince me. So it's really not up to me to figure out what would be convincing. I can tell you right now, all of the evidence presented so far by theists are not convincing to me. That's what I can say for sure. If I were to try to formulate some kind of criteria, I would say that you'd have to provide some kind of verifiable suspension of the natural order of reality that has no underlying cause or reason for it, and the best explanation is not a natural one, but is rather a supernatural one. I think that would be a good first step in coming to an understanding of God. Do you have any kind of evidence that would meet that definition?
The Muslim will always tell you there's nothing about it that I can prove to you. All we can do is tell you why it is that we are in a state of belief, and you do it that way you will. So,
are you a Muslim?
Yes, I'm a Muslim.
Okay, so you're Muslim. That's fine. Well, so you're basically saying that there's no point in me asking you to give me evidence for your God. Like you're just supposed to sit there and point to the Quran and be like, the Quran says this, therefore believe it. Is that what I'm getting from you? I feel like that's what I'm getting from you.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But
okay, could you explain a little bit further?
I will tell you. Yeah, I will tell you that that the Quran, to some degree, is evidence. Is part of why I'm a Muslim, but that's not part of why I believe in a higher power that I think created the universe in the first place. I believe in a higher power because I don't think
that the universe was created.
I'm sorry.
I don't think that the universe was created. If you're starting from a position where you're like, oh, the universe was created, then you're doing question begging.
Yeah, let's ask him that. What convinced you that the universe is a creation?
Well, it's exactly that. As I was just saying, I don't believe in luck, chance, or coincidence.
Okay.
And so I don't believe that anything, including and especially the entire universe, could have come about by luck, chance, or coincidence. And
Can you define luck and chance and
coincidence? That's where I was going to go. Let's stick to that luck, chance, and coincidence. So what we're gonna ask you to do is define what you mean by coming about as of luck, chance, and coincidence. So, taking your words, I think what you're saying is that there's a dichotomy. Either the universe was intentionally created by an agent, a thinking mind created the universe, or the only other possibility is that it came about by what you call luck, chance, or coincidence. And what we're asking you is,
or it simply always existed,
or maybe it was eternal. Yeah, that's another option, right? So, what do you mean by luck, chance, and coincidence as with respect to, I guess, physics, and realizing none of us are physicists here? What do you mean by luck, chance, or coincidence? Because I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah. Well, that I would define, each of those terms by Webster's dictionary, but probably the same way that anybody else would define them. But when someone says a physicist or an atheist, for instance, says that that's how those are one of the three reasons that the universe could have come about. Stephen Hawking, I think his name is, the guy who's in a wheelchair. He says the universe exists simply because it can,
Sure.
and nothing deeper than that. Well, to me, that would be.
Do you know what he meant by
like
that?
Chance, at least.
Do you know what Hawking meant by it exists because it can?
No.
And again, I'm not a physicist.
No,
not
if
my understanding.
He had a deeper meaning than just what he said. No. If he had a deeper meaning than just what he said outright, no, I don't understand what he meant by that.
Okay. So this is my novice understanding, and I'd love to hear from physicists who tell me that I've got it wrong. But I look to a couple of different things that we know experimentally happen that I think would fall under your definition by luck, chance, or coincidence. So are you familiar with radioactive decay?
Man, I've heard the terminology. I mean, I've never read anything about it. I don't have knowledge.
All right, so you've got a collection of atoms that are all the same type, and some of them are radioactive. They throw off particles over time, and they decay from one form of an element to a different element, right? Plutonium and those sorts of things are highly radioactive, and they have what's called a half-life, right? So we cannot predict when any given particle will be thrown out of an element, like when it will shed that electron or whatever particle it's shedding, right? But we know with a certainty that taken as a whole over time, that it will lose half of its volume over, let's say we're dealing with some form of uranium and it's got a half-life of 1,000 years. By definition, and these are just example numbers, but by definition, that means if you start with 100 grams of it, then in 100 years, because it's got a half-life, in 1,000 years, because it's got a half-life of 1,000 years, over 1,000 years, you will be down to 50 grams instead of 100. So while we cannot predict, it seems absolutely random when any given particle will be thrown off, we can be absolutely certain that when you measure that as a whole, by the time you get to 1,000 years, pretty much exactly half of that stuff will be gone. So that's one example of each individual thing is random, but over time it becomes a sure thing. Another example is we have now proven that at the quantum levels, particles are created and disappear apparently randomly, i.e. without a cause. Particles just blink into existence and then they blink out of existence. This has been observed in the laboratory. So when I think about the universe and when Stephen Hawking says it exists because it can, if you've got an infinite amount of time, not that time existed before the universe, but if you've got an infinite amount of potential to exist, then given enough opportunities to exist, i.e. given enough opportunities for that atom to decay, it's going to happen at some point. I think that's what he meant. So taking all of that information, the fact that we observe random things happening that appear to be uncaused, at least with the quantum stuff, particles appearing and disappearing in an on-case state, and the fact that we see random things happening, but then when you measure it at a higher level, it all becomes a sure thing. Doesn't that call into question your dichotomy that the universe was either created by a creator, always been, or just happened by quote unquote chance? Isn't chance in that context a viable option?
It doesn't to me. If I can explain.
Sure.
Well, the reason for that is because the example that you gave of the things appearing and disappearing seemingly without a cause. Well, I mean, of course, my argument against that would be that seemingly, and us not understanding what's going on there doesn't mean that there is no cause of it. It doesn't even mean that they are appearing and disappearing randomly. I mean, they're coming out of somewhere and going to somewhere that we are unaware of. Hell, in 10 years, we might know what's going on with that. Just like
That
maybe
is
10 years ago, we didn't even know that.
That is an amazingly good argument. That is an amazingly good argument, right? I totally agree with you. The best answer we have right now as to why these things appear apparently randomly and disappear is we don't know, right? That's the answer. We don't know. Is that correct?
Yeah, I reckon.
Okay. So isn't that the same answer to where did the universe come from? The best answer is, I don't know.
Well, I don't think, no, I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's the same answer because, for instance, well, one of the reasons that I believe in a creator in the first place is because, we exist in a reality where I'm not familiar with things simply popping into existence out of nowhere or creating themselves or simply having always existed. And so that leaves me believing or thinking that I don't have any reason to believe that the universe simply popped into existence for no apparent reason or created itself or has simply always existed. Because
so
we don't have
reason,
those things in the reality that we exist in.
Understood. Let's say we agree with that. You just said, I have no good reason to believe that the universe just popped into existence, whatever that may be. Let's say we agree on that, hypothetically. Do you have a good reason to believe it was created by an agent, a thinking agent?
Well, I have what I believe to be a good reason, and I think I may have said that a little earlier. Because I don't believe that, because like you take anything that is complex, which I'm sure you've heard.
Don't go to the dichotomy again. Don't go to the, hold on. Don't, I want to warn you. I see where you're going with this. Godless, I know you know where he's going with this. I don't think you're applying the same level of intellectual honesty to your answer about where did the universe come from? Did it just pop into existence versus did it come from a mind? I would propose the answer is I don't know to both of them because we have the equal amount of evidence for both of those propositions. I have never seen a universe be created by a person. I have never seen an agent demonstrate that they have capabilities even close to creating a universe. I have never seen anybody explain why quantum particles pop in and out of existence. So my answer to why does all of that happen is I don't know. So GE, that's on your screen right now. Godless. Before we get back to Shabazz, which I think Shabazz, you're doing a great idea. You're doing great. I just wanted to sort of cut you off at the pass there. It sounds like you're saying you've got different levels of evidence demand or requirements, standards of evidence, as we call it in the courtroom. What are your thoughts there, GE, so far?
Well, so I'm wondering if so the natural explanation is just going to be that universes inflating from wherever they inflate from, whether that be a quantum scalar field or a singularity, however you want to describe that, it's going to be a natural process that happens, right? So considering that's a natural process, I usually like to shift to something that's a little bit easier for everybody to understand because the beginning of the universe is a rather complex topic to talk about with a lot of different nuances and facets to it. I usually like to shift to the water cycle. And I'm wondering if Shabazz can tell me, do you think that God is needed or responsible for the water cycle to operate?
Yes, I think Allah is responsible for everything in creation. So quite naturally, I would think that.
So you would think that God, every time it rains, God is directly involved in that weather event.
Anything that happens in nature, I think Allah is directly not directly involved but in control.
No, Shabazz, you say a law is responsible for it, right? A law is something that's written by humans. It's our description of how reality works, and it definitely does not include a God-like coefficient or anything in it. So what I'm asking you directly is,
I didn't say a law. I said Allah. I think Allah is in
I'm
control
so
of not. Yeah,
my ears. Sorry, Allah. I got you now. My ears was hearing a law.
I was with you,
Allah.
Godless. I'm like, I'm confused. But okay.
Well, when I say Allah on my voice text, it says Allah, so it probably really does sound like I'm saying that sometimes. So excuse me.
No, I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
All right. So God, let's say God as a shortcut for some powerful being. God is directly involved with making it rain on Tuesday.
Right. What gives you the indication that God is directly, or Allah is directly involved in making it rain? Like how we understand the water cycle to operate, it's all about a transfer of energy. Energy comes from the sun. It heats up a puddle of water. That puddle of water turns into water vapor because of the energy that it absorbs, and it gets excited, like with all the energy that it's absorbed, and it turns into water vapor. It then rises up into the air, making clouds. Once those clouds get to a certain temperature that's lower than in energy level than what it was when it originally turned into water vapor, it then turns into some kind of precipitation. Now, depending on how much energy those water molecules lose, it turns into rain, sleet, snow, hail, whatever, right? And so it falls to the ground, and then it returns to a liquid state, either like if it was like sleet or snow or something like that, it's gained enough energy to turn into water. But eventually you're going to get back around to another transfer of energy from the sun to the puddle of water that then starts it all up again. So in this exchange and transfer of and transformation of energy, where is God in that equation?
Man, to me, the answer is as simple as any cycle that is produced by anything that man creates. I mean, that's how Allah meant for it to be. That's that's how He said it to be. I don't understand.
Okay,
so are you a? Let me ask you a question there real quickly. Are you a deist, i.e., Allah set the universe in motion like a clockwork toy, but then once it was running, He doesn't interfere?
No, well, Muslims think that Allah is always in control and mindful of His creation.
But you can't point to a spot in the cycle. You can't point to a spot in the water cycle where God is doing anything to make it rain on Tuesday at tea time.
I can't. Yeah, well, of course I can't point to that. I can't point that out to you no more than I can point out to you anything that we can't verify ourselves about what Quran says. But my friend, once you already believe on Quran, the things in there that are because of the things in there that are verifiable, the things in there that you can't verify.
Right, Shabazz.
Can I finish that thought?
Well, no. So basically what I'm hearing from you is that you have to already believe in Allah in order to understand the explanation for why Allah makes rain happen. And that explanation is basically just an ad hoc stipulation that Allah is needed for the rain to occur.
That's not what I'm saying, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's exactly.
That's what I heard as well. So why don't you explain it to us? How is it? Let's cut to the chase, actually, rather than worrying about quantum physics and water cycles. What is the best piece of evidence that you were presented with that convinced you that there was a God? Let's not even talk about that it was Allah. What's the single best piece of evidence that you became aware of that convinced you that there was a God?
That's great. Yeah, that, absolutely. Because my belief in Islam versus my belief in a creator are two totally different things. And it's not that there was any evidence presented to me. It's just what my natural mind tells me. It's what the Muslims call the fitra, our natural inclination. Because I even tried atheism out once upon a time. I was 14 years old, found myself in a ridiculous situation, terribly situation again for the umpteenth time. Couldn't believe it. Decided I didn't believe in God anymore because I kept finding myself in situations like that. That lasted for a couple of days before my not believing before something happened that. My not believing in luck, chance, and coincidence kicked in, and I've never been able to get back to that state of mind again.
So
I mean, I believe in a higher power.
Let's answer the question though. What is the single
Yeah,
best piece of evidence that you were presented with that convinced you there was a God?
Yeah, but my friend, I answered that. I said no one presented me with any evidence. It's my natural inclination. I can't convince myself, that there's no creator of trees and grass and everything that I see.
I understand. Hold on a second. Hold on. I get it. You told me the answer. So my follow-up is that a good reason to believe something?
It's not in itself. I wouldn't say your natural inclination is a reason to believe something. No, not in itself, because your natural inclination could be incorrect.
Okay. Well, so you agree that you could be incorrect. Your natural inclination that Allah exists and controls everything, that can be incorrect.
It's not only do I agree that I could be incorrect about that, but of course it's not just that one reason that I believe in it. I acknowledge that every reason that I believe in Allah, Islam, and Al-Quran, I acknowledge that every bit of that could be incorrect.
Okay. That's great.
I don't think that it is incorrect, but I acknowledge that it could be.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Why don't you require evidence to believe in things about reality? Because it seems like you're saying that you believe in Allah and you don't have evidence, you just believe in it. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, I don't feel like I don't have evidence. My evidence is the main evidence that Allah is the creator, of course, to the Muslim is Quran. And my evidence to myself that there's say what?
Oh no! Let's hold on. I'm gonna call back to the very beginning. I'm gonna call back to the very beginning of our call here. I literally said your evidence that Allah exists, as you point at the Quran, is like, look, there's the Quran that says Allah exists. Therefore, Allah exists. That's exactly exactly what you just said. Am I losing my mind?
When you said that,
no, I don't think so. At the time that you observed that, I wanted to get into a conversation about circular arguments and things like that, but we have come full circle to the circular argument. So let's give Shabazz a chance to clarify. I want to give you a chance to clarify. So explain to us how this is not circular reasoning. If I've understood you correctly, let me summarize, because one thing I found on these calls is people can run with something and not understand each other. So let me summarize my understanding of your position to make sure I've got it right. The best reason you have for believing in a God is your natural inclination. You then say that another good reason, maybe not the best, but a good reason to get specific on Allah or whatever, is the existence of the Quran and what it says. Am I understanding that correctly?
Just about. Yes, it's my natural inclination that has me believing in a higher power at all. And the reason that I believe that higher power is actually Allah is because I've been convinced by what Quran says.
Okay, what about the Quran? Why should we believe anything that's written in the Quran? What about it makes it convincing?
Well, there are a few things. One thing is the Quran has falsification tests, and I don't see that in any other religious book, especially when I was a Christian studying going through Christianity. The main one is it says, and if you are in doubt about what we have revealed from time to time to our servant the prophet, then produce a surah like one in Quran and call your witnesses or helpers if there are any besides Allah. And then it goes on later on to say,
no, Shabazz.
Yeah, and then it goes on.
Tell me right now.
Yeah, man. Can I finish my?
No, let's address that one. We've gone back and forth. I was trying to clarify your position. We've given you time to talk. Let us address it one by one, because if we get 20 of them in a row and we have to go back to the first one, everybody's going to forget about it. So let's go with this one. Go ahead, Godless. If I understand correctly, it's, hey, if you think this is wrong, produce your own evidence. Am I understanding that correctly?
No.
No. Okay.
You don't think that No, it's not. If you think it's wrong, produce your own evidence. If you don't think this book is from the creator of the universe,
right,
then first it says produce a chapter like it, where some of the chapters are only a few verses, and then later on it goes on to say just go ahead and produce a verse like it. And that challenge has been running for 1,450 years. Some people have stepped up to the plate, but it sure hasn't been.
What does it mean? I'm sorry, Godless. You go first. We've got a lot of questions here. That's I don't think I've heard that one. I think I've heard it in popular culture, but that's an interesting one to think about. What you go ahead, Godless.
Well, so I would say, like, so the Quran states. Let me ask you this thing first, there, Shabazz. When you look out at the night sky, do you see one moon or one moon split in two?
Clearly, I see one moon.
Okay, fine. The Quran is false in what it claims, and God is not the all-knowing creator of the universe, because I've proven that the verse in the Quran, which I can look up the exact verse if you want me to, where it says that the moon got split in two. I mean, if the moon is not split in two, how does that make sense? Or are you going to try to retcon that verse into it not literally being about that?
Yeah, no, it literally meant that the moon was split in two. And I mean, man, my dude, please, the moon being split in two doesn't mean that it still has to be split in two. Allah created the moon in the first place. I think if he wanted to split it in two and put it back together so it wasn't notable, I think he would be able to do that, considering.
Just to clarify, the splitting was notable, but the mending doesn't have a mention. Is that correct? Like, that's not notable?
No.
Oh, okay. That's convenient.
Because it's obvious that it was mended if it's not still split. Isn't it obvious?
Of course it's obvious to anyone who accepts that it was split. To anyone who accepts that it's split, it must have been mended. I congratulate you on that logic. If we accept that it was split in the past and it's not split anymore, then it must have been mended. You are 100% accurate on that. But Godless, do we have any evidence that the moon was ever split other than some person writing a book about something?
No, definitely not. But also, I love how this is giving, like, my girlfriend lives in another goes to another high school, another school, because basically what you're telling me is that, oh, look, the Quran says that the moon got split into two halves. Oh, but it's not split into two halves now, so it got put back together by God. Obviously there's no seam or anything like that we've been able to discover whenever we've went to the moon or anything like that. So, like, he split it and then perfectly put it back together so that we cannot fucking tell that it was ever split. But also, it's notable to mention that no other civilization in the history of the world has noted that the moon split into two and then was miraculously put the fucketh back together.
That by Shabazz's logic, that means obviously that meant Allah hid that event from everybody else.
No, that's not obviously by my logic. That's what you are saying is obviously by my logic.
But that is your logic. Your logic says if a book claims a thing, I'm going to mute you because I want to explain that. Because logic is what we're sorely lacking here. Your logic for the last response was, if this book says something happened and now we observe something that appears to contradict that, then we must believe the book and come up with some other explanation as to why we don't observe that. And then Godless just said, well, the book says that the moon split within recorded history. No other population on Earth recorded seeing a split moon. Using your logic, a book said a thing. We have evidence that contradicts that thing. Therefore, some other explanation must be come up with. We must invent some other explanation to still believe in this book, i.e., God hid it from the rest of the world, or they're lying about it, right? They're lying. So that's what I mean by that. So, do you understand that's the same reasoning?
No, it's not the same reasoning at all. And the only reason it even seems like that is because, for starters, man, you already looking for something wrong with what I'm saying. So just like y'all telling me when I'm starting out from a certain position, I'm going to automatically see things from that position. So wait.
I got a bridge to sell you, man. Like, if it's not your job to be skeptical of claims, especially crazy claims, like, I got a bridge to sell you, I got this $1 million Bitcoin investment you should make, you should be freaking looking for things that are wrong. Hey, I can cure your daughter's cancer, right? Give me $1 billion. I'll do that. Shouldn't you? Isn't it your job as a thinking human being to be skeptical about these things? Aren't we in a place in this whole goddamn point in history where we're seeing things happen that are a result of people not being skeptical? We are harming ourselves. We're harming the world. We're doing all of this crazy stuff because people are not looking for contradictory evidence. They're not looking for alternative hypotheses. They're not actively trying to disprove the claims of certain people. So shouldn't you be looking for problems before you believe something? That's my question to you. What are your thoughts on that?
No, man, my thoughts are, man, I really don't appreciate how long I have to listen to you all critique and criticize. And then when I
Okay, so we're going to put him on mute again, because anytime anybody says that, I'm going to say, go get your own show. But you literally just said the problem with our reasoning is we're looking for problems with your reasoning. You called into a show where the main question we ask every freaking week is, what do you believe? And, comma, more importantly, comma, why? We want to know why you believe things, and then we are going to try to poke holes in that. That is how all of science works. That is how all of common day life works. When the guy comes to you and is selling you something that sounds too good to be true and has zero evidence, if a guy came to you and says, hey, you give me $10,000 today, at the end of the year, I'll give you $1 million. Trust me, this book says it's true. You wouldn't do it. And yet you're risking your eternal life on the same level of evidence. So I think, Godless, what is your take on this? Thank you, Shabazz. We'll go ahead and end the call now.
Yeah, I think that it's rather hilarious that people call in and they expect to be able to monologue. Like, I get that. I get that you have a response, and we definitely want to respond to you and your thoughts. But it's like, one, just doing a gish gallop and just monologuing for however long you want to monologue so that you can monopolize the time here on the show is not productive, and it's not interesting. And I just don't understand why people think that they can just call on here and monologue the entire time. It's really crazy. Second of all, I feel like what we're able to show with Shabazz's view of Allah and all that is that he's got a very special pleading attitude about it. He relies on his intuitions that there is a God, and then he was convinced by the Quran, and then all he has to do to other people is point to the Quran, and somehow the Quran can be disproven if you can write a line that's similar to the Quran.
Yeah. We didn't get to that. I wanted him to define or whatever the Quran says, like, is there a definition for that? Like those exact words? Is it something that's poetic? Like, I'm sure people disagree, but that I found fascinating. It's like, I've read a lot of really good books that inspired me to tears. Like, I don't know.
Well, and I mean, like, I don't know the textual history of the Quran, but I'm guessing that it all wasn't written in one sitting. So you definitely have multiple different authors that are writing in similar styles, and you could definitely write in a similar style to the Quran. Like, I mean, you could train. I mean, in the age of AI that we're going through right now, you could definitely train AI to sound exactly like the Quran and have it produce new verses to the Quran, and I doubt you'd be able to pick them out.
That's an amazing point. Oh my God, I hadn't even thought about that. That would be incredible. So, it smells of something I've seen a lot, and I don't know if this is unique to Muslim apologetics. Let me know if you've experienced this or if other people have experienced this in other religions. There's something unique about Muslim apologetics where they will get up and they will make these claims and then not even try to address the obvious sort of holes in it. Like a lot of Christian apologetics, they've learned to abstract out so they can have arguments about, whatever transcendental argument from whatever they want. But the claim, like, try to write something like the Quran, you can't. Right. And then they just say that, like, that wins the point. And then when you try to get into a conversation like it, you get the claims he said, which is it's been tried for 1,000 years or whatever he said, 900 years, and nobody's been able to do it. Right. And then when you peel that banana and when you pull that thread on that sweater, it's really just a collection of people making that claim, and there's no evidence that what they mean to say it was like the Quran. They don't ever define that. And then when you see people doing a very, very good job, it's discounted for some reason, right? It's just this false test that people are putting up. There's something special about that. The same thing where they get into a lot of Muslim apologetics is like, oh, the Quran predicted embryology. And then you actually look at embryology and it's just empty. It's like, it's nothing. It's like, oh, there's water involved in life or something is the biggest claim. And they just take it so far and people just believe it without question. And then they call our show and say, the problem with you guys is that you're trying to find problems with my beliefs. Oh,